Microsoft Japan's experiment with a 3-day weekend boosts worker productivity by 40%. Not surprising. I worked 4-day weeks a few years ago, and it was the happiest with my job I've ever been. 4/10 is fairly decent. But being able to line up those long stretches of time off on the holidays with minor vacation is priceless. I've intentionally chosen a career with shifts that give me at least 3 days off at a time, sometimes more. I've worked 10 days on 4 off for 5 years now, and I don't think I could go back. We actually recently got switched to 9 days on and 5 off. It's been so nice. I don't know what I'd do with a 2-day weekend anymore. It doesn't seem like enough. It doesn't seem like enough. You're right, because it's not enough. Life isn't supposed to be about working. You ever notice how rich people seem to always be on vacation? My friends tell me this all the time. I can work remotely anywhere and have 3-day weekends. And also negotiated 8 weeks a year vacation in my hiring package. What industry/country? My guess is software industry, seeing as we can work remotely anywhere. You can't really do that in oil exploration or Pope's chicken sandwich making. A lot of the increase in productivity is attributed to the changing of meetings. With only 4 days to get everything done for the week, many meetings were cut, shortened, or changed to virtual meetings instead of in person. As someone with quite a few friends at Microsoft, I will say that this is a major point. I know people who are in meetings until 3 or later most days, then they start actually working. Microsoft meeting culture is insane. As someone who works at Microsoft, no engineers are in meetings that long, unless they're at the principal level and are working on a feature that requires multiple team collaboration. The only people who are in meetings all day are managers. Which they are. Huh. There we go. Just sounded insane to me. One bailed out because they got tired of not getting home until super late most nights. Family life suffered, and eventually they just got too fed up. If they are managers, then those meetings are their actual work. Their job is to manage all the administrative stuff, so that the developers, or whoever, can work effectively. I'm a new manager. One of the big changes was this. Meetings aren't a distraction from my job, they are literally part of my job duties. It is, but be cautioned that being in leadership roles also means learning to discern meetings that are truly important and those that are not. When I was new to management, I found that I was being included in everything. Our culture was big on just inviting everyone all the time to all of these meetings. It took a while to navigate, but eventually, I was able to curb the onslaught somewhat by learning where my contribution was necessary and where it wasn't. I work this now. It makes a job I hate tolerable. It also helps with things that can only be done during business hours, like appointments or car repairs. And then I can spread weekend chores over 3, rather than squeezing them in over 2. Yeah, on days I work it's like my day is ruined anyway. I think this would be better for schools too. Longer days for students, but 4 days a week. With one of those hours being a free period for students to do extracurricular activities of their choosing. As a teacher, I would love 4-day school weeks, but I wouldn't want longer days. Instead, I would rather they go year-round. My school district used to have several schools like this, and they had the best schedule. Spring break was 2 weeks instead of 1, and summer break was only 3 or 4 weeks. Students didn't lose as much of what they had learned, and both they and the teachers got a week break every 10 weeks or so. The district eliminated these schedules a couple years ago, and put them back on the traditional calendar like everyone else, I suspect to save money. It costs more to staff non-salaried employees and eat/school when people are in the buildings more days out of the year. Such a shame. That sounds so much healthier. I love it. Add in block scheduling with longer classes, reduction of wasted time due to passing periods, and take away the bullshit standardized testing, and it sounds like an ideal situation. Fridays would be great to do drugs at home with no parents around. Much better than trying to sober up by 5:30. I think a lot of people equate meetings equals productivity when in fact you're only probably needed for 5 minutes in most hour-long meetings. It drains so much actual real work time. That's a common criticism of Japanese managers. I work in Japan and it's a real issue. I'm lucky in that big meetings aren't too common at my company. At an old job, someone fucked with the default meeting time setting, and no joke 70% of our meetings went from an hour, old default, to 30 minutes, new default. There's a similar thing at Google, where the options for booking a meeting are 25 minutes or 50 minutes, so our theoretically always breaks between meetings. It doesn't really work, but what does work is constantly having a shortage of meeting rooms. Meetings wrap up very quickly when there's another group waiting outside the room and peeking in. I was working less than 5 days a week for years. When I went back to a 5-day-a-week job, the most noticeable thing was not that everyone worked better because of better rest or whatever, but that work was less efficient because 5 days was assumed every week. That is, let's push Thursday's meeting to Friday, then end up kind of hanging out not having much to do on Thursday itself. Wasting an hour here and there every day on pretty much nothing. With a 3 or 4 day work week, I worked until the day was done and got practically the same done as a full work week. Would obviously depend on the job pretty heavily though. Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the job. I worked a labor-intensive job many years ago, and they experimented with a 4-day work week, and productivity dropped dramatically. We went back to a 5-day week. 10-hour days of tough labor can take a big toll. Looking back, I remember how long the days were more than how great the 3-day weekend was. I also don't think that's healthy. A really labor-intensive job for 10 compared to 8 a day can be too much for your body, especially as you get older. Every summer we go to 4/10s, and every fall we are sad to go back to 5/8s. 3-day weekends rock. I got on 4/10s for a few months, and those last 2 hours each day are surprisingly brutal. I eventually switched back to a standard schedule. Most of my coworkers have stuck with the 4/10s, so those Fridays with no coworkers and no meetings are super productive for me. That's because productivity and energy levels tapers off strongly after 6 hours. Totally agree. 6-hour shifts 4 days a week would be ideal. I wouldn't dread going in and would be able to focus more. I bet I would get about 95% as much work done as a 40-hour week just from the boost in morale and actual productive time. Give anybody I've worked with 4/6s instead of 5/8s, and go ahead and block Facebook/Reddit/etc, and you won't see a change in how much work gets done. I doubt you'd need to block anything. If people have the incentive to go home when their work is done, they'll get their fucking work done. I'm a lot less inclined to wander/be lazy at work when I have days off to look forward to/ I'm getting off early. On days I have something scheduled and I leave early, it's a rush to get my usual things done as much as possible. It's not that I don't want to do my work, it's that I don't want to do my work for 40 hours a week XD. If I have less time to do something, I'm way more focused and can work harder. If I have too much time to do something, I procrastinate a little more and have trouble dialing in my focus to the task 100% because I know I have the time. I wish American companies would do this. However, with my 14 years of experience dealing with upper management, I found that, if it makes sense, they won't do it. Hey, did you know that Microsoft is American? Did you know this is Microsoft Japan that did this? Did you know that Microsoft Japan is a subsidiary of Microsoft, an American company? It is. Oh my god. Yeah, I bet you feel pretty dumb. Nah, I'm pretty smart and get paid well for it. Kind of a miserable lonely piece of shit, huh? Poor guy. Have a good day, little fella. Happy trolling. Likewise, Yatwit.